Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Orchid Systems View Extender presentation. We're very excited about this new module because it opens up multiple opportunities to revisit your existing Sage 300 ERP customers for opportunities to customize and automate processes within Sage 300. And that can include things like adding field level security, monitoring changes at the field level and logging those changes in the database. It also allows you to integrate to SDK and non-SDK based applications. And essentially it creates the opportunity to also build in alerts and scripting to automate processes within Sage 300 ERP. So many times business partners have developed macros for their clients in order to automate processes, and we believe that using View Extender will be a better approach because it won't necessarily be tied to a specific service pack update or version change within Sage 300. Our presenter this afternoon is Anne Fouché of Orchid Systems, and we will be recording the webinar this afternoon, so there will be an opportunity to view this presentation again, posted to our YouTube channel at RLA Associates Limited, and probably at the orchidsystems.biz website as well. So without any further ado, I'll pass the control over to Anne and ask her to begin the presentation. Thanks very much for attending.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks everyone for attending. Sean and David, is the echoing gone now? If you wouldn't mind, is the sound all right? Everyone's phone is muted.
Muted.
So it should be clearer. Okay. So as Rob was saying, View Extender allows you to essentially extend the ACPAC view logic again, for validations, alerting, and alerting via email or creating notes or just alerting on the screen as you go. And these extensions can be applied to any Sage 300 ERP views. So that implies, of course, all the core modules, GL, ARIP, OEIC, PJC, etc., but also any third party that's developed in the SDK, for example, Technisoft Service Manager or norming fixed assets or AutoSimply manufacturing. For all these products that are developed in the SDK, their logic can be extended at the view level, not at the screen level. So let me first show you the types of events that we can create, and then we'll run through how we can trigger them off particular views. So we call the things you can do when a view field or a view is changed or inserted or updated. We call these events. And the kind of system-wide events that you can do without scripting would be, the first one is, for example, to send an email. So in this particular instance, I want to send an email when anyone changes the customer's credit limit. And I want to send an email to this address, CCing these addresses, and the template for the email would look like this. So the customer credit limit is changed, and in your template you can use any field value or view field value of the view that you attach this to. So I'm going to attach it to the customer view. So I can use any of the myriad of fields on the customer. For example, ID cust, which is the customer number, name cust, which is the customer's name. So you can use any of the fields on the view that's open and active. And you can either use the existing field value, for example, amount credit limit, or original field amount credit limit if you want to track the prior value, what it changed from and what it changed to. So in my case, I'm tracking the credit limit changing, and when it changes, I send an email, and the email can also include the type of operation, was it an insert or an update, or in fact if you're tracking deletions, was it a delete, and the user, the Sage 300 user that did the change. So apart from all the view fields, you also have these predefined fields, the operation that was happening, the user that did it, the date and time, and here's an example of the additional fields that you have in your email templates over and above the standard ones which are associated with the view which you're changing. So this event is going to send an email when I'm going to attach it to the credit limit field on the customer, so it's going to send an email when the credit limit is changed. Another example of the events you can do is log. So in this case, what you're saying is you want to just log the field that's changed. So you want to store the previous value, the new value, who did it, date and time. So that can be attached anywhere to header fields. For example, the salespeople on the order header, or to detail fields, for example, the discount amount on the order line. You can attach to any field on the Sage 300 views. Another example of an event that you can trigger is to create an information manager note. So in my case, I'm again going to attach it to the customer credit limit changing, and I want to create an information manager note. And the note type, so this is the information manager notes, the replacement for Zippy notes. So you can create any note type, but it must obviously be associated with the key value of the record that you're going to attach it to. So in this case, I'm going to attach it to my customer view, and the key to that is the ID cust. And again, just like for emails, you've got a template for the notes, so you can construct the note how you want, using again the fields from the view plus the original fields if you want to, if you're tracking a change, plus the user, the operation, the date and time. And the last type of event that you can create is, for example, I've set one up here for vendor integration, and the last type of event that we have at the moment is to run a program. So those are the 4 types we can do. We can log the change, we can run a program, we can send an email or create an information manager note. And an instance where you would want to use run a program would be, for example, if you're trying to integrate or keep in sync your vendors in Sage 300 ERP with your vendors in another system. And this really is how we started off with View Extender, because we needed to be able to update an external billing and purchasing system whenever a vendor was inserted or amended in Sage 300 ERP. And the normal way that you could do that is, or the way you can do it with the base programs in Sage 300, is you could run some scripts, or to see which vendors have changed since you last ran your script, and send those across. But the issue with that is on the vendor, it's got the last date it was amended, but not the last date and time it was amended. So the best you can do is extract all the changes that have happened since you last ran by day, not by date and time, and send all those vendors across. But if you're needing to do it immediately, or every minute or every hour, then you'd be sending the same vendor record details, for the full 24-hour period until your date and time clocked over by a day, which is inefficient, especially if you've got lots of vendors that are changing frequently, and if you're not working, both systems are not running in the same domain. It's fine if you're on the same domain, it takes seconds to update, but if you're sending these records across to an external system, perhaps a web service, perhaps a website somewhere, you don't want to be sending data which is not necessary. and hence we recognize the need to be able to track the changes as it's happening and do something for those changes. So in this case, and I'm going to attach this particular event to my vendor record, my vendor view, and I'm going to say when some fields change on the vendor, I want you to run, and in this, just for my sample, I'm just calling the an AVB from the Sage macro directory, but ordinarily on our live site, this runs our program, which calls the web service of the external program and passes through the amended or new vendor details. And in this particular case, I'm going to attach this event to a number of fields because I'm interested when a number of fields on the vendor change. Not all the fields, just some of them. But I don't want to call the program multiple times. I just need to call it once if any one or all of the fields that I'm tracking change. So you can, on your events, combine and just trigger one event if any one of these things change, or you could say don't combine, and in which case it would call the external program, the vendor integration program, on multiple times based on multiple fields changing. So that's really the setup for the four main event types we have. There is another thing we can track, which is not yet in the released product up on the website, but it will be going up towards the end of the month, is the ability to track when users sign in. So if you turn this on, then it's going to, every time a user signs into Sage 300 ERP, it's going to track date and time that they logged in. So that record can also be kept. So once you've created your events, the next thing to do is to apply them to the views that you want to apply them to. So by clicking this info button, you can see all the views that are loaded up on that in this particular company. So everything that's active for this company. So you can see I've got all my standard AP views, and scrolling down in the list we go through to AR, etc. So you choose the views that you want to associate them with. Because I have EFT, RMA active in this database, we get all the views for those as well. And if I had Service Manager or Auto Simply or Norming Fixed Assets active in this database, I'd be getting their views as well. So once you've decided which view you want to track, for example, let's look at the vendor one first. In this particular instance, we're saying if the vendor ID, the vendor name, the address fields, and the contact fields, if any one of those change, then call the event vendor integration. So, and you remember on vendor integration, I put it as a combine. So if any one of these fields change, it will only call the vendor integration event once. It won't call it on every change, on every field changing. And the fields or the things you can attach an event to is all the fields in the view that you've attached to. So I attached to AP15, which is my vendor record. So I've got all the fields on the vendor record that I can attach an event to, plus the standard events that happen on a view when it's being deleted, when it's being inserted, when it's being updated, or if you've got a generic sort of thing for either when it's inserted or updated, then you can use this upsert, which will track all, new record and or amending record. So in this case, if I go and change my vendor, any one of those fields, or insert a new vendor, then those fields will trigger the vendor integration DLL to be called, and it'll do whatever we've written to do in the vendor integration piece. Another example is something I've attached to the customers. So in this particular case on the customer, I'm tracking the credit limit field changing, And I want to do three things. I want to log the change, I want to send an email that it's changed, and I also want to create an information manager note saying that it's changed. Now, in reality, you probably wouldn't do all three things on one particular field, but this is just to show you can have multiple events coming off one field, and multiple events obviously attached to multiple fields. So let's see how this particular, if these particular events get fired off on the AR24. So, which is your customer view. So going to customers, and just looking at customer 1200. On the processing tab. So these are my notes and document management link that I've configured previously for customers. But this first note here, you can see the customer credit limit changed from 15,000 to 20,000 on today's date by admin doing an update on the record. So if I was to go and change the customer credit limit back to 15,000, let's say, and save. This note will be changing. It will only change when I refresh and redisplay my notes. So if I go forward arrow, and the pause that's happening here is the fact that I've configured it to send an email, and my virtual machine is currently not able to send an email, so that's why it took so long. Ordinarily the email would have been sent off. But if I just go forward arrow and backward arrow to look at the vendor's notes again, you can see the customer's credit limit has changed from 20,000 back to 15,000. So that's the example of updating or creating an information manager note. And the way I configured my information manager note was just to have one note about the credit limit. I could have configured it to have multiple notes about the credit limit, in which case I would have multiple notes, each showing here each time the credit limit changes. But I wanted to just show it as one note so everyone can see the current credit limit field. But I'm also auditing that field changing. And so when there's an audit inquiry and an audit report that you can go and see values that have been changing on particular views, but you've also got a quick key, which was a backwards tick and tab, which allows you to bring up the audit trail on that particular view that you're looking at. And I'm looking at all the logging that I've been doing on the customer, which is only the credit limit field, and it shows you the full history of date and time. So going back to 17th of March, when I first started tracking this credit limit field, all the way up to today's date. So the credit limits, I've trying to send an email, albeit my email's not working, updated the information manager note to show what the current value is, but also logged the change of those fields changing. So you can also, so that's showing you the three different examples of the view setup, the view events attached to the customer view. But you can also run a script. And you can run multiple scripts in a particular order. And what these scripts are, they're written in, we give you lots of samples, but in essence, you maintain them for your customers. And they're written in Python. And sorry, my F9 doesn't work when I'm on GoToMeeting, so I'm going to have to browse to the directory to actually show you this particular view script. So what happens when you go to attach, if I was to go to attach a new view to a new script to a view, is it browses to the directory, or you can browse to any directory. If you look at the if you download and install View Extender and look in the scripts directory, there's a whole lot of samples that we distribute with the product. But we are working on a web page which you'll be able to, just like you can go and download sample cubes at any time. We're working on a web page where we'll put all these sample scripts, plus it'll be easier for us to pop up scripts as we go, and you don't need to re-download to get them. You can just go to that page. It will be in the login area of our website. It won't be in the open area, so customers won't be able to download themselves, because we feel you should be really in control of which scripts they apply to which views. So that it'll be on the products downloads area, all the scripts that we develop for people and samples that we create. So if you browse to any directory where you have the view and then open it up, what it does is copy from wherever directory you are into the company directory for this particular company. So the scripts are active per company. I'm in Orc Limited, and these are the scripts I currently have active in this company. And at the same time, so the scripts are sit in the company directory, and this is where they run from. But at the same time, not in the product that's released at the moment, but will be up there by the end of the month, the script will be imported into the database as a backup. So although it's being run off disk, and it always will be run off disk because that's the way Python works more efficiently, we will also keep a copy of this in the database, which will dump and load with the database. So these scripts will dump and load and be transportable, backed up in the database should anything happen to this company directory, but is run from the company directory. And if I just open up the one that I'm working here, the limiting the customer's credit limit, and I'm just using Word or WordPad to look at this particular file. And for the developers, for the non-developers on the session, don't panic too much. A developer would recognize immediately these function calls and would recognize that on any view you've got certain standard function calls before a value is put into the view, after a value is put into the view, before a view is written to the database, after the view is written to the database, when a view is deleted. So you've got these standard view calls or events on views, and you can then attach your own code around that view call. So in this particular example, we're saying if the field of the event on before put is just before the value is written into the view. So if the field that we're talking about is the amount credit limit, and if the user that is running this is admin, and if the value is greater than 20,000, give an error message. Return 1 is an error message. So give an error message that the maximum credit limit is 20,000. Whereas if the user is not admin and the value is greater than 10,000, give an error message that those users can only change it up to the value of 10,000. So in essence, what this will do is validate the field and only allow it to be updated to a value less than 20,000 for admin, but less than 10,000 for any other user. So if I was to go back to my customer now and go back to 1200 and change the credit limit to 25,000, it's giving me an error message. The maximum credit limit that I'm allowed is 20,000, and if I was logged in as another user, I'd be getting that error message for maximum credit limit of 10,000. So you can validate and prevent that update will not go through. So you can validate and prevent that update from happening. And because we're working at the view level, So we're sitting underneath the screen. That script would still be active whether an external program tried to update the view. So if you had an external program inserting customer records, if the amount of the credit limit was greater than 10,000 for any other user other than admin, or 20,000, it would prevent the update going through altogether. Same if you were to go file import and import from a list of an Excel spreadsheet where you've got all your customer records. So no matter how the view is accessed, it's applying the logic to the view. So other examples that we've worked on over the last few weeks with people who've needed to do some changes or validate some changes is, just go back to this and show you where we've attached them. So on the AR ship to locations, we've got a script which can validate what value gets entered into the country field and make sure, A, that the country field is not blank, but B, that it exists or is one of a list of country fields that gets maintained in the script. And the other one I want to show you is on IC items. In this particular case, we wanted to validate the commodity field, commodity number field, that it was not blank. And in this place, we're also logging the commodity field, but for the AR ship to locations, we're not logging anything or sending an email. It's all we're doing is validating what the field value is. So just showing you how those two scripts work. So in my ship to locations, if we look at a customer who has some ship tos, you can see the credit limit note has been created as well for this particular customer. But opening up one of the ship to addresses, and if I was to change the country code and perhaps delete it, and this time the validation is happening on the save. So it's saying you can't have a blank country code, and if I change it to something that I know is invalid, it's saying it must be one of CA, US, AU, or NZ. So this change will not allowed to be saved until this record is set at a valid value. So now saving just lets that change go through. The other example I talked about was on the commodity field. So going to my items, and A11030. So if I was to change the commodity field and get rid of it, and by saving it, it gives me that error message that I must have a commodity field. I don't think I put any validation, so it can be anything, but just can't be blank. And that any update to the item would go through that validation and not allow it to happen. So in this database, the only other events that I've actually set up is against my order header. So on my sales order, I'm tracking if the total amount of the order or the salesperson one field gets changed. I'm not running any scripts. And on my order details, similarly tracking, not running any scripts, but tracking the extended amount changing and or the item changing on the order detail. I'm still doing testing at what point too many fields on a view being logged will affect the performance. I have had up to 10 fields on the order header and the order detail, and on the shipment header and the shipment detail, and the invoice header and the invoice detail. And the performance, the amount of time it added to those invoice, shipment or order details being created and saved was not really noticeable, but I am still doing testing on that, and I will publish at what point you're logging too many fields on a record. and it will start eventually affecting your performance. But I haven't finished that testing yet. I will publish it as soon as I've finished doing the testing. So that's really View Extender working at the view level to increase the functionality either by predetermined script events or by user-defined scripts, which can happen, multiple scripts attached to the same view. So that's what I had planned to run through this morning. So I realize all your phones are muted. So if you've got any questions, if you could pop them in the question box. Oh, lots of questions. Sorry, when I'm talking, I don't keep an eye on the question box. So let me go through these. So there's a question from Jim. Use any field in the view. So Jim's asking, can we use any field in the view? Yes, you can. And Jim's saying, does that include optional fields? So yes, Jim, if I had attached, instead of to AR24, I can't remember the view for AR customer optional fields. I think they are view ID description contains. So the AR optional fields either on the invoice or perhaps on the customer. So if I had attached the event to that particular view, then I would have the optional fields for that particular view. And yes, you could attach an event around optional fields. Django's asking, are the presentation strings used in place of the actual data type? Django's asking if in the email templates and the information manager notes, are we using the presentation string? For example, 1 is an invoice, 2 is a credit note, and so on. Are we doing 1 or are we doing invoice in the note? Good question, Django. Haven't an idea. Haven't tested that, so I'll let you know. I'll get back to you guys on that. Can the field values be sent as command line parameters when using the run program? At this stage, no, but it's on our list to that you can pop any one of those view fields after the program. Obviously, it must coincide with your program and be passed in the correct way. But at this stage, it's just calling the program. But by the end of the month, we will have parameters. So the answer will be yes, as the end of April. Can the script make an inquiry into the database as part of its logic? Yes, it can. So in that script, if I just go back to that directory, the sample script directory, there's a sample of showing you all the view calls that you can do. So you can, for example, compose another view, open another view, read it, do whatever tests you want on that view, and then based on those values, then do something. So yes, the entire ACPAC view logic is available to you, just as it is in writing VBA or VB code around the ACPAC views or screens. So the entire value is, the entire database is open to you. So yes, you can. Sean's asking, that example was for an edit on post. What about preventing a user from seeing a record? So that would be done. So the example that I did was after the record had been displayed and accessed. So you could have on the read a check who the user is and then return 1 to say you can't go any further, you can't read this record. So you could do that sort of security based on your additional logic. But remember, it's not attached to a particular screen, it's attached to the view. So you're blocking it out from anything, from wherever, any other process that's trying to read that particular record. The next question, also from Sean. You were saying if a customer is outside a user's specific territory, prevent them from opening that or posting an order to them. So yes, you could have a script running on the OE order header screen that when they type in the customer number, then you check the territory, and if it's not, so on the put of the customer number into the order header, if the territory, you read the territory, if it's not the right territory, then you return 1, and it would prevent any further action happening on that particular order. Another question, do you have to have Information Manager to use View Extender? No, you don't. But if you want to create an Information Manager note, then you have to have Information Manager notes. But if you don't have that and you don't want to be creating notes, you're just applying scripts or logging changes, all you need is View Extender. Django's asking if you change a Python script, when is it loaded for use? So at the moment, Django, if you change it after you've attached it, you need to do the changes in that company directory because it's run from that directory. But when it's being imported into the database, what you will need to do is that once you've imported it in, you'll need to do the changes from that view, from this particular screen where you do the attaching. And my F9 is not working, so normally when I click F9, it goes to edit that particular script. So it's editing it from the company directory, but any changes done will re-import into the database so that you've got the script which will dump and load across databases. So once attached, it needs to be edited from the company directory, and once we're importing it into the database, it needs to be maintained from here or re-imported if it is changed in an external location. Where am I up to? Doug is asking, if we want to capture who did the bin transfer, will the info be captured in a database table that can be reported upon later? Yes, so if you logged the insert of a bin transfer, you log the user ID of the insert of the bin transfer, yes, it can be reported on later. But from memory, we've got the user ID on bin transfers. I'm not sure about that. I'll get back to you on that, Doug, as well. But yes, you could do that. Mary's asking, can we use this to change the initial value of a field, for instance, blanking out the expected ship date on the OE header? Yes, you could. So, on opening of the view, you could default, so it would be on open of the view, and then your scripts again would be the same. If we just look at this, you could, instead of saying if E field equals this, you could be saying my amount credit limit field equals 20,000. So you could preset it to 20,000, or you could preset your any of the territory based on the user. So if the user is this, then preset the territory to that. Or, for example, if they enter a state which is one of the 52 American states, then default the country to US. Or if they enter one of the provinces from Canada, then default the country to CA. So you can do not just post-checking of when they type something in, but you can pre-populate the record when they first create it. So Django's asking, for the order header detail views, typically the detail views write their values to the database first, followed by the header. What is the order of the events? So we're working before it's written to the database. So it's at the time of the update happening to the field, either through a put or through the update. So it would be at the same time, how do I say, if the detail is updated first and then the header, then detail validations or scripts would be run before the header. So it's at the time the field is changing before it gets back to the database. So it's with the view event changing. I hope that answered your question, Django. Then Denise is asking, can the log entries be used in an SQL view to return the results to Excel? Yes, the log entry is a standard Sage 300 ERP table, so it can be used. There's a view call to read it, there's Crystal can read it, and ODBC connection via Excel can read it. Yep, you can. Django's asking, can I change a field value in the script? Yes, absolutely. So I think I went through that on Mary's example. You can, just as here, we're validating that fields are not bigger than something, but we can be saying, amount credit limit equals this, or in your case, you were saying if the user enters United States, you can switch it to US, absolutely. So if E value equals United States, then E value equals US, and that's in effect overwriting what they've keyed on the screen or imported. Is there a script builder tool, or do you need to write code from scratch? So Fred, we're hoping to give samples across all the views, all the views where we're asked to give samples. So you'll always be able to take another sample view, sample script and amend it. But if you wanted to do something where we absolutely haven't worked before, you do have to write the script from scratch. And in the help there's a reference to a couple of websites. Python is a language which is either a scripting language or can be compiled up, which is used quite widely in web development. So there's a lot of help around on it, but also just send us an email. We can help you get started in any area as well. As a developer from a long time ago, but I haven't done any development for a long time, I found it quite easy to read and to work with. The biggest thing that I didn't, that trapped me up is you don't have brackets or semicolon to show your where you are in the code. It's done by indentation. So that confused me a bit. So all this code happens because it's indented under this if. So we don't have an open brace or closed brace or a semicolon to finish off the script. So that's the hardest bit I found about learning it. But can a complete, somebody who's done no coding at all, just write a Python script from scratch? No, I don't think so. You would need to take one of our samples and amend it, or ask us to do the script in the area where you want to be. And William's asking, will View Extender work when you're using the portal, or must you use the desktop interface? So exactly, William, it will be active no matter how you access the views, either from the portal or from your own custom screen, or from an import. It does not rely at all on the Sage desktop interface, which is exactly what we were hoping to achieve, because what we think will be the case is you'll be able to do customizations either around the portal screen or around the ACPAC desktop screen, and it will work the same way. And because you're not having to compile it into a particular version and product update of that screen, because it's independent of the screen, I think 99% of the scripts will be product update independent. So unless they actually delete a field in a product update, you won't need to relook at this code. And we're also pretty confident that it will be version independent as well. So this code will work as well because the amount credit limit field exists from day one in Sage 300. This code would work on 2012, 2014, in our new to be released 2016. I believe it's coming out at the end of the year. So we think it'll be version independent as well, and which is why we think it's going to be such a good tool for you to use for your customers, because you won't need to compile specific instances around a product update and version combination to get a change, you know, a validation or a defaulting happening. It'll be consistent across versions, which I didn't mention before. Currently up on the website is version 2014 View Extender, and what we're working on at the moment is the ability to create your own tables using View Extender, and then you'll have your own views on your own tables, so you'll be able to, at the moment, the validations, for example, of my country credit limit, my country ship to country is just sitting in the script. So my country list is hard-coded, as it were, in the script. But what you'll be able to do is create yourself a country table, for example, which will have a key and a description, and then you'll be able to apply your script to say if the country, you'll have a view call on your own table called country, so you'll be able to open that view, browse, see if it exists. If it doesn't, give an error message, and if it does, just let the screen carry on. So we're working on this at the moment, so that we're hoping will be released sort of mid-May, towards the end of May maybe, and then straight after that we will compile up a version 2012 View Extender and a version 6.0 View Extender. So View Extender will be available for all the currently supported versions of Sage 300. If anyone wants it on prior versions behind that, we will do that on a charged basis, however long it will take us to take it back to a prior version, because there has been some interest in taking it back to version 5.6 for some people who are stuck on that version for many reasons, can't upgrade. Larry's asking, can a PO trigger be triggered if a job-related and greater than cost category? Yes, absolutely. So Larry's asking, can we do some sort of validation that the job is per category is over budget, something like that? Yes, you can trigger any code to do any sort of validation and either just give a warning message or prevent that data entry happening. And during the training at TPAC, one of the scripts that we were asked for is, which we're still working on, or haven't quite got to working on yet, is when you're entering purchase orders which are job related, that you can have like a quick copy like you do in AP and AR, and you can copy down the project, the category, or those three fields for projects down as you're inserting new rows, both on PO, purchase orders, and sales orders. So that's one of the samples we'll be doing. And another script that we were asked for was for service manager. So when you complete a service manager job, you automatically create another job for X days time, like a follow-up job. So those are the ones we'll be putting up onto the web page as soon as it's up and running. Guy is asking, are the samples